I wish I could say something that was classy and inspirational, but that just wouldn't be our style.
Yeah, I'd like to hear it.
SportsTownChicago.com. Lombard, part of the P On Air network and available on the TuneIn app.
Hell yeah.
Broadcast home for your Windy City Bulls and the Chicago Dogs. We're in a league of our own. Now, here's your SportsTownChicago.com scoreboard update.
At 5:15 on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, I am your host, Mike Napolitano, with your SportsTownChicago.com update powered by the Illinois Media School. If you're interested in a career in media, go to beonair.com. It is a very important day for America today. As of 3 p.m. Central Time today, it was the NFL trade deadline. Bears fans were hoping that this would bring change, but just like U.S. politics, it looks as though nothing was accomplished to change the trajectory of this organization. Many are calling for the head of Matt Eberflus after this past weekend when the Bears had an unacceptable touchdown-less loss to the Arizona Cardinals. There are even certain rumors that Eberflus has lost the locker room amidst the Tyreek Stevenson drama and the fact that DJ Moore walked off the field and sat down on the bench during a play. Yikes. That is the last thing you want to see out of this Bears organization. No more news on that out of Hallis Hall, but we will await as the Bears look forward to their game against the Patriots this Sunday back at home. In other sports news today, the MLS playoffs are raging on. There are no games technically scheduled today, but as of now, they are in the first round in the best of 3 series and moving into the semifinals. That has been your SportsTownChicago.com update brought to you by the Illinois Media School. If you are interested in a career in media, go to beonair.com.
Clear to center for Taves. He got a breakaway. Taves to win the game.
It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way from touchdown. Call your sons, call your daughters, call your friends, call your neighbors. Mark Burley has a perfect game going to the night. Oh, trying to get open, fires away. Firing! It's over! The Bulls win at the buzzer! Brady Wise makes the kick. What a play by Wise! Mercy! He goes. One to go. Keeps a key. 2-on-1. Hustle back to point up a shot. Overtime. Open. Chicago with the lead. The Chicago Bulls have won their 6th NBA championship, and it's their second three-peat. Alexei. Yes. 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 History. Jones in the net. They scored. It's it! It's it! The Hawks win the Stanley Cup! The Hawks win the Stanley Cup! A ground ball past Jenks up the middle of the infield. Uribe has it. He throws. Out! Out! A White Sox winner and a world championship! The White Sox have won the World Series and they're mobbing each other on the field! Pennington, Kurashev plays the rebound for Bedard down low. Bedard! Lacrosse style scores! Unbelievable! Connor Bedard! Dude, that was insane.
Welcome in on a very important Tuesday. It is your right to vote on this Tuesday, November 5th, for a new head coach for the Chicago Bears, maybe new ownership for the Chicago White Sox, anything that will help this sports town and all of the teams that call Chicago home. No, all jokes aside, make sure you get out and vote today. I am very patriotic today, but that doesn't mean I'll be rooting for the Patriots this weekend as the Bears have a matchup at noon with them. But before we get into the future, we got to look at this ugly past here. The Bears were coming off of that upsetting Hail Mary finale against the Washington Commanders and that Tyreek Stevenson play that we covered last week. And with him on the bench and being sat for this week, it looked as though the Bears were going to try to bounce back, start a game on time, start a little bit better against a Cardinals team that was 2-2 at home, 4-4 on the season. So full on 500. The Bears were looking to stay above 500 and finally get a win on the road as they were 0-3 coming into this game. That didn't happen. This Bears team is a very home field centric team as they have all 4 of their wins in Soldier Field, but have yet to find their first win in an away stadium this season as Arizona clobbers Chicago 29-9. Arizona opened up the scoring in this game with a 2-yard run from Trey McBride. That was the only scoring in the first quarter. The Bears started to make a comeback with 2 Cairo Santos field goals, a 29-yarder and a 53-yard blast to bring this game within a point. But then the home side would strike again with a Trey Benson 1-yard run that put the Cardinals into their own end zone again, making it 14-6. Cairo Santos again to make a 53-yarder, bringing the Bears back within a score. But then it's Amari DiMercado with a 53-yard run, a phenomenal, huge run. That drive took 4 plays to go 70 yards in just 22 seconds. And the Cardinals are back into the end zone with only 4 seconds left on the clock. The Bears all season, it was 21-9 at halftime. Needless to say, the Bears did not do any more scoring in this game. A Chad Ryland 29-yard field goal would mark the sole scoring in the third quarter for the Cardinals. Then he blasts a 55-yarder in the fourth quarter. And just to add insult to injury, the Cardinals would get a team safety, bringing this score to 29-9. Unbelievable. Caleb Williams, not a great day. 22 for 41 attempts, 217 yards. Kyler Murray, not that much better, but 13 for 20, 100. The rushing yards were, of course, led by DeAndre Swift of the Bears. He had 16 carries for 51 yards, but it just wasn't enough on the Cardinals side of things. It was Connor with 18 carries and 117 yards. That's James Conner, if you were wondering. As far as the receiving yards go, Rome Odunze had 5 receptions with 104 yards. And then it was the first touchdown scorer, Trey McBride, who had 3 receptions, 35 yards, and that touchdown on the day. You don't hear DJ Moore's name in there, and part of that is because, as I mentioned, he walked off the field during this game. He was so frustrated with this Bears offense on a play that while Caleb Williams was still scrambling, DJ Moore had found the sideline, was wide open early on, and then decided, you know what? Caleb Williams isn't going to throw it to me anyways. I might as well go grab some water early. And the play continued while DJ Moore was seen on the sideline, taking his off, sitting down, having the trainers come over to him. I mean, why bother at that point, right? I guess. Unbelievable. There was a play, too, where the Cardinals were basically on the goal line and had a man wide open in the end zone. Kyler Murray didn't see him, so the touchdown wasn't scored for the Cardinals on that play, but they could have had more points in this game with how bad the Bears played. This is just unacceptable. This Bears team has had its ups and downs this year, but now too many downs in a row, no pun intended. And you start to wonder if this team is ever going to look up again. this was a big day today at the trade deadline, and all the Bears did was acquire a 2025 7th-round draft pick from the Cincinnati Bengals for halfback Khalil Herbert. So Khalil Herbert leaves the Bears for basically a bag of dirt. Basically nothing. A 7th-round draft pick. This is very reminiscent of the Justin Fields trade. Now, I'm not one of those people that's advocating that Justin Fields still be here and is better than Caleb Williams. I mean, it's still very early on in Caleb Williams' career to really justify that take. It's also tough to really analyze who Justin Fields is as a quarterback. He had his flashes here in Chicago. The fan base was behind him, and he's had some really inconsistent success in Pittsburgh. If you were listening to the show, you know me. I was advocating for still drafting Caleb Williams and having both. I understand a lot of your salary cap then is tied up on the bench with having two supposedly number one quarterbacks, but if you were going to trade Justin Fields for a pack of bubblegum and an IOU note, then I don't even understand the point in trading him. That's in the past. Nothing can be done about that now. The Bears will probably not receive as high of a draft pick because it was a conditional trade with the Steelers, and Justin Fields has to play at least 51% of their games this year, and it looks as though despite some of his success, they're trying to keep him under that number in order to retain their draft pick and also give Russell Wilson a final shot because his career could be coming to a close very soon, but they still have faith in him enough over in Pittsburgh, I guess. But wow, is this a bad Bears team right now and getting nothing during trade deadline day. The only other move made in November from the Bears was that they activated offensive lineman Larry Borom from injured reserve and elevated offensive tackle Jake Curran and center back Reddy Stewart from the practice squad to the active roster. So calling in some reinforcements. Now, trade deadline was today at 3:00. They haven't gotten anything. I've been refreshing all day and still nothing. And I'm just as surprised as I think you are. If you know anything about what is going on with this Bears team right now, which leads me to my next point, which is that their next game, as I mentioned, is this Sunday, November 10th at noon on Fox against the 2-7 Patriots, who are 1-4 on the road. The Bears are 4-4. They are 4-0 at home. This needs to be a win for the Bears, not just to keep their home record perfect. That's all nice and dandy, but in order to get back above 500, get back on the right track, because this schedule is not going to get any easier as the season goes on. As we talked about before the season, the divisional rivalries will start to act up in the final weeks. In fact, it'll be the next week. Sunday, November 17th will be the Bears' first matchup against their bitter rivals, the Green Bay Packers, followed by a very tough Minnesota team on November 24th, and then an even tougher Detroit Lions team. Now, yes, I know I said an even tougher Detroit Lions team. I don't think anybody expected the Vikings to be 6-2 at this point with all their injuries this year, but the Lions have been there and done that, and actually right now as it stands, they are 7-1. So they may not have had as great of a start to the season as Minnesota had, as Minnesota was undefeated for a time there, while Detroit still had that one loss. But this is going to be a very tough next coming weeks for this Bears team. Packers are also 6-3. So the Bears need a big win. We will see. And before we see, we'll get into some other football news. However, we don't have time in this segment. So we're going, because it's playoffs, with some other playoffs talk as the World Series wrapped up. I have all your news on the Dodgers and Yankees right here on Mike on the Mic. What's up, sports fans? I'm Mike Napolitano, and you're listening to Mike on the Mic right here on SportsTownChicago.com and the TuneIn Radio app. Now back to the show.
This is your home for sports. SportsTownChicago.com.
Joe's Hot Dogs has been around since 1953, but I promise it's not old news. You don't have to like hot dogs to like Joe's on Plainfield Road in Joliet. Italian beef, hot dogs, shakes, and sides. My family's had a relationship with Joe's Hot Dogs for 3 generations. Golden fries with a tad bit of salt and the perfect amount of crunch come in a bag as big as your hand. And that's just small. For more on the menu, visit joeshotdogsjoliet.com, bringing that classic Chicago flavor to the suburbs. That's Joe's Hot Dogs across from CVS on Plainfield Road in Joliet.
At the football game, Jim shows the telltale signs of being wasted. He starts flexing for the camera. He refers to his muscles as gunboats. He screams, "How's this for a halftime show?" Jim streaks the field.
It's easy to tell if you've had way too many to drive. But what if you've had just one too many to drive? Never underestimate just a few. Buzz driving is drunk driving. This station.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and Windy City News Radio.
The Illinois Center for Broadcasting is now the Illinois Media School. We've been an institution in the Chicagoland area now for 30 years. Because the broadcasting world is always changing, so are we. Not only are we teaching radio and television production, but now you can learn all aspects of the media industry, like web design. You can even specialize in TV or film, sports broadcasting, and even sales. No matter where you are in the Chicagoland area, we have a campus near you. The Illinois Media School. Be on TV, be on radio, beonair.com.
Maybe that was money. Tell me that wasn't money.
Yo, check us out. We are the go-to guys. I'm your boy Space.
I'm your boy MC.
Check us out every Thursday
from 4 to 5 p.m.
We spitting all facts, all sports, all day.
Yes, sir. Who else you going to go to in the clutch?
Lillard, long range three, and it's good!
Keeping you up to date with all the latest sports news.
We are
the go-to guys.
Where else you going to get all your sports news from?
You know.
SportsTownChicago.com.
St. Patrick's Day. The only day of the year that it's okay to not boo the Boston Celtics.
I will show you mercy.
SportsTownChicago.com.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh?
Mike. What day is it, Mike?
Oh, dude, it's Tuesday. It's time for Mike on the Mic.
Woo-hoo!
Right here on Sportstown Chicago and Twitch.
Oh, day!
All right. Well, the Fall Classic is no more, as the end of the baseball season was last Wednesday. We left off after Game 3, and the Dodgers had a 3-1. Oh no, sorry, Game 4. Oh no, yeah, Game 3. Dodgers had a 3-0 series lead. That's correct. Because then we were on the mic on Tuesday for the Yankees' sole win in this series. It was an 11-4 victory. It was a little bit deja vu before that, with the Dodgers winning Game 2 and Game 3 by the score of 4-2. And of course, we covered that amazing first ever walk-off grand slam in a World Series game by Freddie Freeman. Well, there was that fan that grabbed the ball out of Mookie Betts' glove in Tuesday night's game, and that was just unacceptable. I don't mean to call anybody out specifically, or generalize an entire fan base, but wow, Yankees fans really living up to the name in that moment. It's one thing to have a Steve Bartman-esque moment and it's an accident. It's another thing when the gentleman that interfered straight up goes on Barstool Sports and all these newspaper and news outlets and says, when we're on the wall, we have to D up and play defense. No, you don't. You just have to be a fan. If the ball comes to you in the stands, sure, you catch it. But that ball, before it got to you in the stands, was already in Mookie Betts' glove. And you pried that glove open as if you were opening up the hand of, I don't know, say crab or lobster, like you were eating seafood, and tried to rip the ball out of there. I mean, that's just unacceptable. Not to mention, Mookie Betts reaches up with his free hand, the non-glove hand, and his wrist gets during this. I mean, you can't really enforce a penalty on the Yankees. They're not the ones who did this, but their fan base did. So thank goodness Mookie Betts wasn't hurt. He was also a class act after the game and said, we lost 11-4 and we were already losing at that point. That, there's no bad blood between the fan and myself. I'm paraphrasing here, but he was basically saying that there was no bad blood between him and the fans and that the loss was on the Dodgers rather than that individual play. Something that Moises Alou did not do. So Mookie Betts is the bigger man in that sense. Now, that leads us to Wednesday night. And this was a case of the Dodgers wanting to close things out, but not getting off to the right start. It was 5-0 Yankees. They were clobbering the Dodgers. In fact, Aaron Judge woke up during the playoffs in order to help the Yankees stay alive. Garrett Cole pitched a great game, but then a couple of errors in a row. A routine fly ball dropped by Aaron Judge in the outfield. There was another instance where a throw didn't make it in the infield. Anybody, I mean, if you play baseball, those things can have a domino effect. Those things can tend to snowball and to spiral, and then you never get out of the inning. In fact, the Dodgers did not let up. The Yankees did not get out of that inning, and it was 5-5 after the end of that inning when they started with it being 5-0. So the Dodgers were hungry to close things out and get the win. The Yankees did retake the lead in that game after that abysmal fifth inning in which they gave up the entire 5-run lead. It was in the sixth when the Yankees scored a lone run. That was a Giancarlo Stanton sacrifice fly to center that scored Juan Soto. But late innings cost this Yankees team 2 runs from the Dodgers in the 8th inning. It was Gavin Lux hitting a sacrifice fly to center in which Hernandez scored, and then Mookie Betts hit a sacrifice fly to center in which Tommy Edman scored. So sacrifice flies are what get the Dodgers the lead, and ultimately the 7-6 Dodgers are your 2024 World Series champions in 5 games. We talked about how scary it is, the fact that this Dodgers team is missing a lot of key players due to injury. Can you imagine how much of a juggernaut, a powerhouse, a wagon this team will be once they have a full, healthy roster? I mean, they're dismantling the Yankees in 5 games in this playoffs, in this World Series. Can you imagine what they can do with a full, healthy lineup with Shohei Ohtani not recovering from Tommy John surgery or a shoulder injury during the World Series? I mean, if he's fully healthy as well, you have him on the mound, you have him at the plate, you have him in the outfield, you have him stealing bases like he normally does, hitting home runs. This Dodgers team is going to be a problem for the rest of the MLB for the next years to come. their efforts. It would have looked good for, quote, a small market team. They had the lowest payroll in baseball. It would have been a huge slap in the face to Jerry Reinsdorf and a lot of other owners who argue that they're not able to have success in a, quote, small market. First of all, the White Sox are not in a small market. Yes, this city is divided, but there are ways for them to pull in money and numbers as far as fandom goes. They just don't do it. But it would have been a huge wake-up call to the rest of the small market teams. It was when the Kansas City Royals won the World Series in 2015. However, I also did want to see the Dodgers win the 2020 World Series because they were cheated out of a ring by the Houston Astros just a few years prior. So, I mean, the Dodgers are just like the series was very... People were hoping both teams lost because nobody wanted to see another traditional team win the World Series and add to their vast collection of rings. But the Dodgers hadn't won too many too recently. Neither had the Yankees. Yankees have 27 rings. They didn't need a 28th. The Dodgers had that asterisk World Series, but failed a couple other times in recent history and hadn't had anything else really in the modern era. But just the fact that this was Dodgers versus Yankees was what brought, I think, a lot more viewership back in, brought excitement to the game. If it was Dodgers versus anybody else, if it was Yankees versus virtually anybody else other than maybe the Mets and you have the Subway Series, I don't think you get this response. But it was a good World Series. I think the magic number is 6 for any championship. I think it needs to go 6. Otherwise, it was too easy for one team or the other. Maybe asking for a game 7 is a little much. You can't always have a game 7. I'm just glad there was not a sweep in this series. The Yankees did really need to win a couple more in here to really solidify themselves as a threat. But hey, they made it. They were the best team in the American League. Juan Soto, though, is already drawing interest from several other clubs, so he might be out of New York during this offseason. However, Garrett Cole did agree to stay in New York with the 4-year, $144 million deal that he initially opted out of. Now, we do have to look back at the Chicago landscapes because as soon as I jumped off the mic Tuesday, the White Sox organization named Will Venable the 44th manager in the club's history. If you recognize the name, he is the brother of Winston Venable, Chicago Bears linebacker in 2011. He also played for the Padres from 2008 to 2015, the Rangers also in 2015, and the Los Angeles Dodgers in 2016. And then he went on to coach for the Chicago Cubs. He was also a special assistant advisor for Theo Epstein during his time there. That was from 2018 to 2020. And then he was a coach with the Boston Red Sox from 2021 to 2022. And then he was with the Rangers most recently, which means he did earn a ring with the Texas Rangers last year. That was in 2023. He was with them again this year in 2024. It's interesting. We will see. I am glad that the White Sox didn't just say, oh, Grady Sizemore is the guy that's here. He knows the team better than anybody. So he is the one that deserves the opportunity to manage, and we are going to take the interim tag off. I think White Sox fans have seen way too much within the organization and hiring just like that with, say, Chris Getz. I know we kind of talked about this, I believe, last week, but I'm so glad that this organization finally looked outside of themselves and didn't just settle for what they had. And I thought that was going to be the case after they swept the Angels in that final homestand and then won 2 out of 3 against the Detroit Tigers to close out the season, almost avoiding history, but they still made it to 121 losses this year. But that would have been the White Sox excuse if they went the cheap route and continued with their interim tag being removed on Grady Sizemore. So we shall see. There's still a lot to be changed with this organization. The White Sox also decided to not pick up the 5th-year club option for Yoan Moncada. They also declined their club option for Max Stassi. So both of them are out on November 4th. That's yesterday. The White Sox also sent right-handed pitcher Matt Foster outright to Charlotte. So they will be retooling this MLB level, especially for this offseason, with just those quick moves right there. On the Cubs side of things, back on October 31st, that was a Halloween, the Cubs sent catcher Caleb Knight outright to Iowa. And then just yesterday, they claimed left-handed pitcher Rob Zastrinsky off of waivers from Milwaukee. Apologies for the butchering of that one. Gonna have to learn that one for the new season coming up, maybe for this Cubs team. And I did promise you some soccer. We went a little too far with baseball, so I'm going to be pairing that with our next segment, which is basketball. But before we get into that, we have to take a look at what is going on in the sports world today.
Back to your home for sports. SportsTownChicago.com. Scoreboard update.
At 5:45 on Tuesday, November 5th, I am your host, Mike Napolitano, with your SportsTownChicago.com update, powered by the Illinois Media School. If you are interested in a career in media, Galiotis Alec Martinez, Blackhawks defenseman who was out with a groin injury, was on the ice before practice today, but there is still no sign of goaltender Laurent Brossoit. He had a surgery to repair a torn meniscus about 8 weeks ago and was expected to be back right around the start of the season. Now the Blackhawks are almost 15 games in, and there is no sign of goaltender Brossoit. Luke Richardson confirmed that Brossoit had a gym day today, and they are hoping that he will be back on the ice tomorrow or later this week. This is all ahead of the Blackhawks' return to home ice tomorrow night, which is also the second return of Patrick Kane since being traded. I think we both remember the first return home, which stole the thunder of Chris Chelios' night with a breakaway overtime winner for Kane and the Red Wings. The Bulls are also in action tomorrow night, which means they are on the road because you cannot share the United Center like that. They will be facing the 4-3 Dallas Mavericks, and this is coming off of the heels of the Bulls' loss to the winless Jazz at home yesterday, 135-126. Casey Johnson, Bulls insider, pointed out that the Bulls are set to face the two Western Conference finalists in the Dallas Mavericks team. But this has been your SportsTownChicago.com update, brought to you by the On Air.
Your home for sports.
Red left!
SportsTownChicago.com.
Home of the Nasty Biscuit on Roselle Road in Roselle. Get over there and try the chicken fried chicken biscuit made with the Southern Cafe's house-made drop biscuit with buttermilk chicken fried chicken smothered in country gravy, topped with shredded cheddar and crumbled hickory smoked bacon. I always say that when you go to the Southern Cafe, you come out with 2 meals with the heaping amounts of food they serve you in every meal. I love to go to a place with outdoor seating. The Southern Cafe has a great outdoor seating area to help social distance, and I get to enjoy my breakfast outdoors. Open 6:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. to give you plenty of time to grab an amazing breakfast or lunch. Now get your butt over to the Southern Cafe on Roselle Road.
Hello?
It's speed walking day.
Dorothy? You're breaking up.
Did I mention we'd be slowing down when we pass the court where those fine brothers play ball?
I heard that.
Reduce your risk of cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and stroke. Get active, eat right, and maybe even run into Mr. Right. Isn't sisterhood beautiful? For more information, go to everydaychoices.org. Brought to you by the American Cancer Society, the American Diabetes Association, the American Heart Association, the Ad Council, and this station.
Alert! Alert! Be gone, maxed out credit cards, overdue loans, suffocating interest rates, and relentless collection agencies. If your credit rating is making you and others around you cringe, there's only one thing to do, and that's to turn to the professionals at Creative Credit Solutions. Even if your credit is less than perfect, we'll help you get back on track. You can do it, and we can help. Call today or visit creativecreditsolutions.net for your free credit check report.
Blow the whistle on SportsTownChicago.com. Mondays and Fridays from 2 to 3 p.m. as we talk NFL.
The game plan was really sound.
The quarterback league. It has been. It still is.
Franchise-defining quarterbacks.
College football.
Will Jim Harbaugh make it through the season as Michigan's head coach?
Some more Big Ten talk.
And here's some things you wouldn't expect.
I would have never expected that.
Get all of that and more on Blow the Whistle on SportsTownChicago.com.
Testing. Is this thing on? Hello? Can you hear me? Guys? Somebody help. Hello?
Now back to Mike on the mic. On SportsTownChicago.com and Twitter. That before we forget, of course, the Chicago Fire were far from making the postseason this past year. However, the playoffs are still going on. Let's talk about the East first, because of the fact that the Fire are in the East. In the wild card round or wild card game, you had a tie between the Montreal and Atlanta teams. It's Montreal FC and Atlanta put Atlanta as the 9th seed versus Miami, the 1 seed. Miami took game 1 2-1, but then fell by the same score in game 2. So there will be a game 3 in matchup, which is very interesting to see. Miami has been dominant all year, even without Messi. But this will go to a third game on the 9th, which is this Saturday. Excuse me. Orlando versus that should be. Oh, nope. Give me 1 second. Let's go to the Columbus Crew versus the Red Bulls of New York. The Red Bulls are moving on after winning 1-0 and a 5-4 PK decision after drawing to the semifinal round. Then we have the 3 versus 6 matchup. That is Cincinnati versus New York City FC. Cincinnati took game 1 1-0. However, New York came back in game 2 and won 3-1, which means this Saturday there will be a game 3 as well. So a busy 11-9, November 9 for a lot of these teams. And then we get to the 4-5 matchup. As I mentioned, it is Orlando versus CLT. That was a 2-0 win, 2-0 win for Orlando. And then for game 2, it was 0-0. Penalties for CLT. Just confirming here before I give you the wrong information. I believe CLT is Charlotte. Yes. Charlotte, North Carolina. Wasn't a look at the West. In the wild card game, it was Vancouver versus Portland. That was a 5-0 victory for the Vancouver Whitecaps. They went on to then face the LAFC team In game one, it was a 2-1 victory for LA, followed by a Vancouver 3-0 win. So there will be a game 3 this Friday, November 8th. Seattle knocked off Houston. So the Sounders won game 1. It was a draw, 0-0 that went to penalties. And 2, however, it was 1-1 instead of 0-0. And then they won 7-6 in penalties. So quite the close matchup. Unfortunate that it didn't go to a game 3 for Houston's sake, but Seattle moves on to the semifinal rounds. They will face the winner of the 1-8 matchup between LAFC and Vancouver. In the 3-6 matchup, it was again a 0-0 draw, followed by a 1-1 draw. That was between Real Salt Lake and Minnesota. Minnesota took the first game 5-4 in penalties, and then the second game 3-1 in penalties. So again, another close matchup that didn't go to game 3 when maybe it should have. Your final matchup in the MLS is the LA Galaxy versus Colorado. LA won the first game 5-0, and then the second game 4-1. So we already have our first semifinal matchup set. Of course, we're not into that round yet. That'll be the following week, but it is the second seed LA Galaxy versus the 6th seed Minnesota. Excuse me. So just a quick recap there. Let's take a look at the women's side of things, because this does apply to Chicago. Unfortunately, the Red Stars suffered a 3-1 loss to the Kansas City Current on Sunday to conclude the regular season. Ali Schlegel scored in the 52nd minute, but it was too little too late, as Michelle Cooper scored in the 23rd. Debinha scored in and added to the lead in the 26th minute, and Nichelle Prince put an exclamation point on this game in the 33rd minute. So it was 3-0 before the Stars could even get on the board. The Kansas City Current set the NWSL regular season record for team goals in a season with 57. That's crazy. You're talking about only playing about 26 games, 57 goals. That's a little over 2 goals a game. And that's a lot for a soccer league, especially in the NWSL. The Red Stars failed to pick up a point in their final match and dropped from 6th to 8th in the NWSL standings after both Bay FC and Portland picked up wins in their final matches. So that means Friday, the 8th at 7 p.m. at Inter & Co Stadium, will begin the quarterfinals, and the Red Stars will be against the first seed Orlando Pride. So a tough matchup. Last time the Red Stars beat the Orlando Pride, you got to go all the way back to May 27th of 2023. In fact, they played June 12th of 2022. Both of those games were 1-0 scorelines for the Red Stars. But then you flash forward to the end of August in 2023. That was a 5-0 victory for Orlando. These two teams drew on March 29th of this year, 1-1. But then the Orlando Pride took the most recent meeting between these two teams. That was a 1-0 win back on September 8th. As I said, the matchup between these two will kick off on Friday, the 8th. So exactly two months since they faced each other previously. But then Saturday, November 9th, will begin the rest of the playoffs for the other teams. Kansas City Current will be going up against the North Carolina Courage at 11 a.m. That's on CBS and Paramount Plus. I should also mention you can watch this game between the Red Stars and the Orlando Pride on Prime, if you have that. The Sunday matchups will be the Washington Spirit versus Bay FC at 11:30 a.m. on ABC, ESPN Deportes, and ESPN Plus. And then New Jersey / New York Gotham FC against the Portland Thorns FC at 2 p.m. on that Sunday, the 10th as well. That's on ABC and ESPN+. All right, we do have a little bit of basketball news to get to real quick as the Bulls were in action this week. Of course, we covered them last week, and it has been a rocky start to the season as they were 500. Now the Bulls are just slightly under 500, 3-4, but they are second in the Central Division. We left off with their next game at home against the Orlando Magic. That was a win, 102-99. It was Kobe White who had the high in points with 21. Nikola Vukovic with 14 rebounds, and Josh Giddey once again factoring in with 5 assists for this Bulls team. However, it's been a rough weekend for the Chicago Bulls. They went on the road to face the Brooklyn Nets. It was a 120-112 loss, putting the Bulls back down at 500. They struggle all season to get above 500. They were 0-1, then 1-1. They were 1-2, then 2-2. Then they were 3-2. After this, they were 3-3. So they can't string together more than 2 wins in a row. They also can't stay a game above or below 500 for that long. Nikola Vukovic had 28 points in this one. He also had 11 rebounds. He led in both of those categories for the Bulls, and Josh Giddey boosted his assists number with 8 more in this game, but it was no match for that playoff Brooklyn team. And then the Bulls went up against the Utah Jazz Monday night. The Jazz went into this game without a win. They were 0-6, 0-2 on the road, but oh my goodness, the Bulls let the Jazz score 135 at the United Center. Utah posting 30 in the first quarter, 32 in the second, 33 in the third, and 40 points in that fourth quarter. Ouch. That's embarrassing. 135-126, the Bulls. 27-26 in the second quarter. They did have a 40-point quarter themselves in the third, but then only 33 in the fourth. In fact, the second half numbers had 33 in the fourth. The Bulls had 40 in the third. That 40 piece was from the Jazz in the fourth. So this game was really decided unbeknownst to everybody in the first half. I actually knew a lot of people at the game last night. Must have been some discounted tickets or just excited to see the Bulls back at home for a sec. Kobe White had the high in points with 28, but it was Utah's Keontae George who posted 33 points. Nikola Vukovic had 10 rebounds. 9 of those were defensive, and Josh Giddey had 7 assists for this team. Keontae George also had 9 assists to lead at this Jazz team. So an unfortunate loss for the Bulls. It's not going to get much easier for them throughout the week. As you know, last week we talked about there were no injuries on this Bulls team. Well, now there are, and it's the usual suspects: Zach LaVine and Lonzo Ball. As of just today, Zach LaVine was listed as out for, well, that was actually during Monday's game against the Utah Jazz, but listed as of today that he is day-to-day. That is a hip injury. Lonzo Ball sustained a right wrist sprain back before Halloween on that October 29th game against the Magic. Against Memphis, that was. And they said that he would be reevaluated in 10 days. So we're just coming up on that mark. Just give it 2 or 3 more days, and we will get an answer on that. But at least it's good to see him back on the court a little bit. And the Bulls are definitely going to need him, as tomorrow night they will be up against the Dallas Mavericks at American Airlines Center in Dallas. To the NBA Finals last year, so this is not going to be an easy game for the Bulls. Ball out, they're going to have to quite a bit, maybe even Josh Giddey to get those rebounds. And Thursday, right after the Bulls will be back home to face the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, the Minnesota Timberwolves went to the Western Conference Finals last year, so that is not going to be a dance for the Bulls either. That's a 7 p.m. start time on NBA TV. And then Saturday, November 9th, the Bulls will go back on the road. A lot of bouncing back and forth. Despite who the Bulls are playing, of course, these next two games are going to be tough, but even the non-playoff teams, it's tough having a game at home and then you go back on the road. So give them a little bit of slack, but they do need to pick things up. Saturday will be against the Atlanta Falcons. Sorry, wrong sport. Atlanta Hawks, wrong bird as well. At 6:30 p.m., the bookends of this next week, you can watch on Chicago Sports Network if you have DirecTV or you have the over-the-air antennas. All right. That about does it. The only other note in Chicago here, and that, of course, is hockey. I have all of your Blackhawks news as they are in kind of the same position as the Bulls right now. I'm not sure.
This is your home for sports. Sports is like life. Sports Town.
Open 365 days a year since 1939. I personally love the steak and egg dinner, but whether you like burgers for breakfast, steak for lunch, or French toast for dinner, White Palace is the place for you. The diner is a 24-hour urban oasis. Come now, come later. Heck, come now in later. We never close at White Palace Grill, located 1159 South Canal Street in Chicago. Visit us at whitepalace.com or order with Uber Eats or Grubhub anytime, any day.
Daddy, when you look at me, I could see your wheels turning. About what am I going to be when I grow up? A major league first baseman? Maybe a point guard for a national champ.
The odds of a child becoming a professional athlete are 1 in 16,000. Far-fetched? Maybe. But did you know the odds of a child being diagnosed with autism are 1 in 166? That's right, 1 in 166. To learn the signs of autism, go to autismspeaks.org. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Go to Lux Barbershop for the best barbers and stylists in Plainfield, Illinois. I go there when I have an important event, date, or I just want to look good. The straight razor shave will have you looking fresh and smooth. Lux Barbershop is open 7 days a week. Go to Lux Barbershop for the finest barbers, stylists, braiders, and massage therapists in the southern suburbs. Check out all their daily deals on Facebook, Instagram, and luxbarbershop.com.
Hi, this is Joe Perry and Steven Tyler of Aerosmith for Red. You know, it's okay to rock and roll and party down. Just don't get in that 2,000-pound bullet when you're done and cocked. And please don't drink and drive. I'm the one that jaded you.
A reminder that friends don't let friends drive drunk. A public service message brought to you by the Ad Council, U.S. Department of Transportation, National Association of Broadcasters, and RAD.
The Chicago Dogs are back on SportsTownChicago.com. Tune in to the season opener against the Sioux City Explorers, Friday, May 28th at Impact Field in Rosemont. First pitch at 7:05 p.m. Hear all the action right here on SportsTownChicago.com.
And the Blackhawks, well, they started off the week so great after talked about how they were at home the previous week. In fact, the Blackhawks lost to a Macklin Celebrini-less Sharks team. I'll give you a second to name me 5 San Jose Sharks other than Macklin Celebrini, because that's who was on the ice that night. Yeah, neither can I. and I do this stuff. No, I'm just kidding. The main performer in this one was a man by the name of Will Smith, not the Get Jiggy With It Will Smith, not the Will Smith that won the World Series, not the other Will Smith that won the other World Series that you know of. There's so many Will Smiths out here. However, this Will Smith was drafted in 2023, right in that first round with Connor Bedard, and he is Hawks team, and scored the second unassisted on the power play to end cap things. In between there was a Ryan Donato goal. He has been the Blackhawks' highest performer this year, and we're going to be talking about him in just a second here because there was a better highlight of his throughout the week. This was assisted by Connor Murphy and Ilya Mikheyev. Mikheyev gets his first assist of the season. Connor Murphy his fifth, and he got his sixth when Tyler Bertuzzi scored to actually give the Blackhawks the 2-1 lead against this Sharks team. Taylor Hall factored in on the assist and that one too. But it's Alex Wenberg who scores his second of the year to tie things at 2. And then it was, as I said, Will Smith getting the second goal of the night. Will Smith is your number one star of the game for the GW fall 3-2. I actually do like this Will Smith kid. They talked about how his family is distantly related to the Comiskys. They used to own the Chicago White Sox. So there's a reason to like Will Smith. Despite him growing up in Boston, he roots for the right color of socks. Then the Blackhawks went on the rest of their Southern California trip against tougher teams. I mean, I guess when you face the Sharks and they're at rock bottom, inevitably you're going to face some tougher teams. But the Blackhawks, they dropped that game to the Sharks without the Sharks' top performer in Macklin Celebrini after they beat the Sharks 4-2 at home in that home opener. And they bounced back from the loss. The Blackhawks get the win in a shootout against a tough Los Angeles Kings team. Now, this Kings team went to the playoffs last year, if you remember, but fell to the Edmonton Oilers. The Blackhawks dug themselves a hole again in this one. Alex Lafreniere, he scored a power play goal, and Lafreniere scored his 8th of the season to make that a 2-0 game, assisted by Alex Turcotte, Chicago native, and former Chicago Blackhawk Philip Deneau. But then Nick Foligno gets on the board with his 4th of the season, assisted by Nolan Allen. That's his 3rd assist of his career. Craig Smith gets his 4th as well, assisted by Lucas Reichel and Alex Vlasic. Tie things at 3. Ryan Donato and Seth Jones get the assists on that one. And then we go to the shootout. Trevor Moore. It's Connor Bedard. He's flashy, right? Blackhawks goaltender in this one. And then it's Ryan Donato to keep the Blackhawks up in the bottom of this frame after Teuvo Teravainen put them up in the shootout. And ESPN broadcast of Ryan Donato's flashy, fancy hands goal to win the shootout for the Blackhawks.
Hottest Hawks goal scorer early in the year is Ryan Donato. He set up the game-tying goal. He's got a chance here. Donato scores! Spectacular! And the Hawks complete the comeback. 4-3 shootout victory. And thanks for Oh, what a move.
What a move indeed. I mean, that was just a thing of beauty. I encourage you to go back and watch it. Ryan Donato wears 1-8 on his sweater. However, this shootout goal, looked as if he had 2 8s on his sweater. I mean, he had the goaltender for the Kings swimming in the parking lot with a couple of stick handles, coming in wide, then going up the gut of the slot with a number of stick handles, fake one way, go back the other way, and put it in 488. Patrick Kane. I mean, that was just incredible from Ryan Donato. And the Blackhawks take the win against this Kings team. And they took that into Sunday. So that was Saturday night, back-to-back games. The Blackhawks had a Sunday night adventure against the Ducks. Now, the Ducks are a struggling team as well. So the Blackhawks got off to a great lead in this one. They did not dig themselves a hole early. That was Isaac Phillips and then Teuvo Teravainen on the power play. Isaac Phillips getting his first of the season, assisted by Connor Bedard and Taylor Hall. And Teravainen's was set up by Connor Bedard and Lucas Reichel. And then it was not until the third period could get the Ducks on the board and cut the lead to just 3-1. But Ryan Donato had something to say about that, assisted by Connor Bedard and Philip Kurashev. That's Kurashev's first assist of the season. And it is 4-1 Blackhawks before the Ducks. Mason McTavish can score a power play goal with just 4 seconds remaining in the game, assisted by Troy Terry and Ryan Strome. But it is not enough. And the Blackhawks take 2 out of 3 in Southern California. And they have actually a great road trip. Go figure, after such a poor start at home and that poor 4-game homestand. The Blackhawks are now 5-7-1. They are 4-4-1 on the road. Not so bad. We talked about the injuries in the update. Laurent Brossoit and Alex Martinez. That's Brossoit's knee, his meniscus. He won't travel with the Blackhawks for the start of the upcoming road trip, which begins Saturday in Dallas. But hopefully he will be at least on the ice practicing with this Hawks team within the next week. Alec Martinez was on the ice today. He's close to returning after this groin injury and will travel with the Blackhawks on the upcoming 5-game road trip. So a 5-game road trip. But before they even go on the road, we have to talk about tomorrow night. The Blackhawks will be welcoming back home for the second time since the trade Patrick Kane, as the Detroit Red Wings are in town. That is a 7 p.m. start time on TNT, True TV, and Max. As the Red Wings, of course, you also have, I believe they still have, who is that defenseman? Oli Mata. Couldn't think of the name for a second there. And of course, Alex DeBrincat will be there as well. Then the Blackhawks are on that road trip. That is Thursday, November 7th in Dallas at 7 p.m. The Blackhawks do come back home, though, against Minnesota at 6 p.m. on Sunday. Blackhawks news as of right now. Just to recap, the World Series is over. Soccer playoffs is underway. The Bulls and Blackhawks are struggling to stay mediocre as always. So it is a tough go for Chicago sports, and it doesn't get any better with the Chicago Bears, but hopefully the home turf will be kind to them this weekend. Hey, you You can check out the Voodoo Podcast. The October episode is out now and features Horror Props, the creators of the viral floating Max prop from Stranger Things, and also my own mom. That's pretty cool. The Apple Podcast, Spotify platform, or wherever you get your podcasts is where you can listen to that one. And then on WRMN, you can check out On the Rise on Saturday mornings from 8 to 10 a.m. with myself and my co-host, The Derek. We cover Schaumburg Boomers, King County Cougars, and AU softball in the summer. But in the winter, we get a little bit of Blackhawks talk, which leads into our Ice Hogs talk. We've got also Chicago Wolves, Chicago Steel, and Windy City Bulls. And don't forget the fantasy football segment with Nick Johnston to close things out and lead you right into the truth about Chicago sports. Stream Sports Midwest. You have Nihil Hockey with the voice of the Chicago Dogs, Aaron Schellen. You also have Eric Willwhite and Ethan Wiles and myself. You can check that out on YouTube. The Divided Podcast has Tilo, G-Lead, The Derek, and myself. That is on Spotify. And you can catch Tilo's other podcast, The Parlay, with Kendall Gill. They will be having a live show on November 15th. For the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight. And you can catch the actual podcast on YouTube and Spotify. And you can follow myself. I forgot to give these out at X and Instagram. Give a follow to SportsTownChicago.com and the Illinois Media School. And be sure to tune in next Tuesday for another episode here on Mike on the Mic. Thank you again for tuning in. I'm your host, Mike Napolitano, and this has been another edition of Mike on the Mic.
This is your home for sports.
This is the best fans in the world.
No better team. SportsTownChicago.com.
Are you ready for this? Valley View Automotive has all of the hottest SUVs you've been looking for. Enjoy a test drive and the opportunity to drive one of these powerful vehicles off the lot for half the price. Yes, half the price. Now's the time to get yourself to Valley View by car, on foot, or even by air to take advantage of this outrageous sale. You better get here quickly, because this promotion is only going on for 24 hours, and the automobiles are leaving the lot faster than you can say four-wheel drive. Valley View Automotive, a dealership you can depend on.
Hey, I'm Andy Griggs, asking you to help prevent domestic violence. Domestic violence isn't a woman's issue. It hurts all of us. Women are injured and killed every day by their husbands and boyfriends. So it's time for men to take action right now to teach boys that violence against women is wrong, to help prevent abuse before it starts. Call the Family Violence Prevention Fund at 1-800-END-ABUSE to get a free Take Action kit containing tips on what to say to boys. That's 1-800-END-ABUSE. Teach early.
Indeed is the #1 job search user with over 250 million monthly users. Indeed's priority is to help everyone in the job searching process to find a job by uploading 10 new job opportunities every 10 seconds worldwide. With Indeed, you have free access to job searches, resume uploads, and company researches. There are over 10,000 employees at Indeed that pursue to help people find the job they are looking for. They connect with millions of people to new opportunities. Go to Indeed.com and sign up for free and create a resume and let Indeed do the rest to help you on your job search.
Hey, I'm Jesus Mauricio. Be sure to tune in every Friday to listen to Zeus Off the Bat, a baseball talk show from 1 to 2 p.m. where I'll be discussing and updating you on all things about baseball. News, predictions, reactions, and more about the Cubs, Sox, and everything across the league. Happens every Friday at 1 p.m. right here on SportsTownChicago.com. Don't forget to follow and share our Twitter and Instagram with your friends at Zeus Off the Bat. Zeus Off the Bat.